jugs, melons, knockers, bosoms, Danny DeVito's Bristol cities, great big stonking anime titties. That's why you're all here, is it, you filthy degenerates? Hello legends, I'm Cerberus, and we're back. Kind of. Today we're going to be taking a flying look through the latest offerings from the World of Warships Legends Azur Lane second wave collaboration. As usual, I'll take a look at each of the commanders, their skills, give my thoughts on them, as well as taking a gander at the ships and the camouflages themselves. If you'd like to skip on ahead, the links to each segment are in the description below. However, I want to apologise for the lack of content lately. Life has been pretty down and I've been keeping myself distracted playing other games with good mates, being in no mood or mindset to produce anything. Sadly, this is likely to continue for a few weeks, but I will try and get some streams and videos out when and where I can. On another note, don't forget to check out the description, and if you want to follow the link to my Discord server, it's still relatively small and quiet, but we can change up the few extra folk rearing their heads. Anyway, without dwelling too much on real life, on with the video. And in no particular order, we'll start with everyone's favourite half-pint tsundere, Queen Elizabeth, or Queen Bitch Tits as I call her in Azur Lane. With her Queen's orders based rate improving battleship main gun reload time, shell grip and AP damage by up to 2%, she'll make a fine inspiration coupled with Andrew Cunningham and Azur Lane Scharnhorst, more on her in a little bit, for god tier accuracy builds. Even if she isn't an accuracy commander in her own right. Nope, she is a brawler defensive battleship commander with skills focused on survivability and utility. Essentially a Charles Madden clone. Across the top row we have Not the One for Nuisance, Brawler with Crisscross, Porcupine and her special skill Skywatch occupying row 2. This skill increases the duration of your spotted plane by up to 30% and grants you up to 2 additional charges of the consumable depending on its mastery. Row 3 is filled by On Second Thoughts and Firefighter with Reach Now XXL, Master Mechanic and Improperly Meticulous round out the final row. Legendary skills for her are Will to Rebuild and Running with Scissors. My thoughts on this commander are simple, she balances out Nelson. Unfortunately for me, this commander, aside from her base trait, is effectively dead on arrival. And while I did say that in this video that this was in no particular order, Queen Elizabeth is comfortably the weakest of the 5 new commanders in my opinion. As mentioned, her skills are just Charles Madden, with the addition of a frankly crap special skill which is only really useful on 3 Royal Navy battleships, which are Queen Elizabeth, Wasp and King George, because the others, which are Orion, Iron Duke, Nelson, Hood, Vanguard, and more than likely the upcoming but not officially announced Tier 6 Duke of York, don't have aircraft. So yeah, and before anyone starts screaming NDA or leaks, the Duke of York is one of the fleet options for Shimakaze in the Bureau. While an argument could be made that you can have the survivability of Madden as well as the compromise on the accuracy in the form of using Cunningham and Scharnhorst as inspirations directly, if I want to build my battleships for accuracy, I prefer to go the whole mile due to long reloads and some more inconsistent accuracy at the best of times, so I cannot really see myself using her much if I'm honest. Of course, your mileage may vary. Speaking of inspirations, she'll make a potent pair with either Cunningham or Scharnhorst for any battleships you feel comfortable sniping with, and in fact those 3 would make for a lethal accuracy combination, especially if you run Cunningham as a main commander. If I was to run this commander as a main, I would probably look at Not the One for Nuisance, Crisscross, Firefighter, Master Mechanic, with Will to Rebuild and Cunningham and Scharnhorst as my inspirations. Moving on to something a bit more desirable, we have the seductive Fusou of the Sakura Empire. Clad in a delightful red-trimmed kimono emphasising both of her huge personalities, her base trait is something I've personally been dreading arriving, Fire Chance. I mean, really Wargaming? I'm not sure who you've been doing your market research with or where you've been getting feedback saying, oh, I know what we need, more HE spam from battleships. But I digress. Anyhow, Cover Fire increases the fire starting chance of your battleship's HE shells by up to 3%. This affects both your main battery shells and your secondaries. I can certainly think of a handful of ships where this would be pretty spicy inspiration for, but we'll touch on that one after the rest of the skills. On line 1 we have A Good Day's Work and Flammable Cannoneer. Oh yes, she's an accuracy spec commander and the only one out of this bunch, and she's pretty much a clone of Takao Takagi. Line 2 comprises of Crisscross and gyrating drill bits, with row 3 donning On Second Thoughts, marksmanship and Fusou's unique skill, Battle Spirit, increasing your ship's max hit points and reducing incoming damage by up to 8% depending on the rank. Note this does not include fire damage or flooding, so bear that in mind. Completing the lineup of the standard skills, we have Reaching Out XXL, Emergency Specialist, and Improperly Meticulous, with the legendary skills being Will to Rebuild and Farsight. Fusou, taken as a whole, is definitely one of the more interesting of the battleship commanders this collaboration, and I can see her Battle Spirit skill being useful on ships such as Yamato and Magi given their large sizes and large hit point pools, but I'm not sure whether it would be enough for me to not use marksmanship for that extra accuracy. Time will tell for that one, I think. The commander could definitely work as a Takagi replacement for those willing to invest the resources and would be pretty rewarding in my opinion. When it comes to inspirations, Sims, Tide, Nelson, Campione and even Tennant would all make for good combinations if equipped with the Battle Spirit skill, as they all increase either your hit points or reduce incoming damage to your battleship or ship in general if you wish to min max. Otherwise, go with whatever you feel comfortable with. Using Fusou as inspiration herself for ships with a good fire chance already, I can definitely see people assigning the default commanders such as Jiwi, Hihachiro, Jellicoe, Dufone, Shia, Campione and Von Essen so they can stack cover fire with Burn It Down XXL for a hefty 5% combined increase when maxed. Jellicoe and Fusou as an inspiration would take Nelson for instance over 50% for fire chance, and there would be those extra special toxic folk chucking on Justinian Leon XIII for extra memeage during repair party with his plus 40% to fire chance. But in all honesty, while her base trait is good for fire spam HE memes, and let's face it, about 6% of battleship captains don't seem to switch from HE, there are better choices for inspirations. What would my recommended build be for her? Well, Thermal Cannoneer. I mean, you gotta burn to death Obic torpedoes anyway. Gyrating drill bits. I would definitely give Battle Spirit a try out. Master Mechanic and Will to Rebuild, with Nelson, or Campione if you don't have her, and Cunningham as my inspirations. Speaking of good inspirations, the first US Azur Lane commander has graced us with her presence, bringing law, order, justice and freedom to the high seas. Draped in blue and yellow, I can only imagine that Mr. VII Hipper failed his No Nut November challenge upon hearing what her base trait is. And swiftly dispensing with that thought, P.S. congratulations on hitting the 1000 YouTube subs. I'll get there eventually. Her trait is called Adaptive Tactics and decreases the undershift time of all ships by up to 6%. In terms of established commander comparisons, Officer Baltimore is essentially a Norman Scott clone. A sure disappointment for those hoping to use her directly as a kiting or evasion build. Or is it? In row 1 we have Burn It Down XXL with Beyond Range, followed by Before It's Too Late Igniter. On to row 3, and we have Velocious Punch Through and her special unique skill AP Salute Ammunition, which decreases the fuse time of your AP shells by up to 40% and improves the penetration of said shells by up to 7% dependent on the rank. This basically means your shells can punch through thicker plating without shattering, as well as decrease the likelihood of over penetration when it passes through enough plating to arm the shell fuse. It sounds like an oxymoron, but it just works, and I'm not explaining penetration mechanics in this video, so just deal with it. The final standard row is steer clear and fixated with legendary slots occupied by fully packed, refill station and equilibrium power. When it comes to outright flexibility, I have to say that Azur Lane Baltimore, along with Graf Spee, are possibly the strongest of all the new commanders. You can spec her for the fire spamming strength of Norman Scott, as well as throwing the mobility skills to have her with a shift of not far short of Thomas Kincaid's full mobility build thanks to her base trait, albeit with a slightly lower maximum speed, and well, that's a fairly reasonable trade-off. I can see me experimenting with this on a few ships, and yes, I know that sounds slightly contradictory given what I said about Queen Elizabeth, but again, deal with it. For inspirations, I would gravitate towards any pairing of Scott, Kuznetsov and Lemonier, although Yamamoto and Lutyens would also be pretty viable for those wanting to use AP spec builds and her unique skill. Would I use said skill? I would certainly consider it on the US light cruisers, especially since they have short fuses anyway, so 40% would bring them not far from the British AP shells, but for ships like Baltimore and Wichita, not really. Baltimore itself is an absolute must as an inspiration for any of you that enjoy being able to manoeuvre, and is a dream for those that employ the full HIPPO special builds, whether that be cruisers, battleships or destroyers alike. If you can decide on what inspiration you'd be willing to part with. As noted, I think I would run Burn It Down XXL, Igniter, Velocious and Steer Clear for the heavy cruisers, with fully packed for being for Baltimore and Indianapolis, with refill station being used on the rest of them. For the light cruisers, I would switch out Velocious for AP Absolute Ammunition, and Equilibrium of Power for the legendary skill, with my first choice of inspirations being for all the previously mentioned Kuznetsov, Lemonier, Lutyens and Yamamoto being my go-to picks. On to the first of the Iron Blood Sharks, we have Scharnhorst, complete with thigh-high boots and an eye patch. As mentioned earlier, her base trait now forms 1/3 of the accuracy spec God build trio if used as an inspiration. In terms of her actual skills though, she is a brawler captain similar to Megatron and Ciliax. Sniper is the name of the game, and this trait decreases the dispersion of your main battle shells by up to 4%. So quick note, dispersion is where shells have a tendency to deviate from where you actually aim within a certain ellipse, and shell grouping is the shell's tendency to deviate from each other. For your top row you have A Good Day's Work, Brawler, and You Should See the Other Guy, with Crisscross, Porcupine and Scharnhorst's unique skill Torpedo Launch, which increases your torpedo range by up to 12% and their speed by up to 5 knots, occupying the second row. Row 3 features on second thoughts and firefighter with reaching out XXL, master mechanic and improperly meticulous finishing out the main skills. For legendary we have will to rebuild and running with scissors. So my thoughts on Scharnhorst. Compared with last year's Henry Hyde, aside from the will to rebuild, for me she is inferior. As on that build I can spec for both accuracy and secondaries at the same time, and essentially means that he is god tier for the German battleships. Whereas here you could use Cunningham and Queen Elizabeth as inspirations and spec into whatever you fancy for some buffs to the consistency of your main battery shells and his survivability, but then you'll be losing out on Franz von Hipper's secondary buffs. The jury is out whether she will tear me away from my beloved Hyde. However, if you don't have Hyde and have to use Celiacs, then yes, she would make me switch and I would recommend getting her. A quick note on her torpedo launch skill, and well, not really a quick note because I really couldn't care less about it if I'm being brutally honest. I can see it being more beneficial for Odin than Porcupine, given its fairly rubbish secondary armament, but for pretty much every other German battleship, I'll probably stick with Porcupine. For inspirations, well, you have the aforementioned ABC and QE combo if you want a sort of semi-hybrid accuracy defensive build, or the tried and tested Cunningham and von Hipper combo. And indeed bother saying what kind of build Scharnhorst herself would be good for, as, well, she'll complement pretty much any. Anything in particular you would recommend if I wanted to use her as a main commander serb? You may wonder. I can happily tell you that Brawler, either Porcupine or torpedo launch, ship dependent, firefighter, master mechanic, running with, just kidding, will to rebuild, with Cunningham and von Hipper as my inspirations. Boring and uninspired, yes. Effective, probably. And finally we get onto the most thoughtful and melancholic of the bunch. Graf Spee wearing, well, I'm not too sure what she's wearing. She kind of looks like a half human, half siren, half shark thing. But anyway, her pocket battleship base trait is another great addition, making her a fine choice as an inspiration for a number of ships. This base trait increases the amount of hit points recovered by your repair party by up to 6%. Full survival builds and ship printers such as Nelson, Monarch, London and Edinburgh are all very moist at this thought. So, to clear up any immediate confusion, this skill increases the number of maximum potential hit points you are able to recover directly by up to 6%. So if you had a repair party which recovers 1000 hit points per second, Pocket Battleship would increase this max potential hit point recovery to 1060 hit points per second. Whereas to counter Kaige's Phoenix skill, which while on the face of it seems similar, increases the threshold for damage recovery of any damage not 100% recoverable, i.e. shell penetration and torpedo hits, but not fire damage and flooding damage. As I understand, to make an example, you can generally recover 10% of sigil damage using your repair party. So let's say you take a 10,000 damage sigil hit, normally you'd be able to recover around 1000 of that. If you add a 3% buff to this, you'd be able to heal back 13% of that damage, so you'd be able to get back 1300 damage rather than the 1000. But it wouldn't affect any damage incurred by fire and flooding damage because that is already 100% recoverable. You with me? Yeah, nice way to make it complicated to try and explain wargaming. GG. And getting back to Graf Spee again, that was a bit of a tangent, but hopefully a bit educational. All her skills, Azur Lane Graf Spee has essentially the same skill as Karl von Müller, with Burn It Down XXL and Beyond range occupying the first two selections, before it's too late Igniter and her special skill Ghost, which improves the surface's concealment of cruisers by up to 8% and 20% by air. Which, if my maths is correct, the Tier 7 Hipper with a full concealment build can get a 9.4 km surface detection range. On to the third set of skill choices, we have Velocious, Punch Through and Fortified with Steer Clear and Fixated closing out. For the legendary skills, it's Fully Packed and Refill Station. Now this is more like it, something that can potentially bring out some more build variety without gimping any of your other stats. You can spec her pretty much how you would normally with Karl von Müller, or you could decide to go down a different route and go for a nice concealment build to make sure you're hard hitting AP shells absolutely bitch slap broadsides. As mentioned, if my calculations are correct, Azur Lane Graf Spee and her Ghost skill with Swirsky and Mikawa maxed out as inspirations, you should be able to get Hipper down to about 9.4 km surface detection range. If you don't have Swirsky, then you could plonk on Lemonade to get your detection time lowered after firing your main guns. I don't think Ghosts will be particularly useful for the actual ship Graf Spee though, due to the lack of concealment mod and being able to detect from space anyway, but for any of the German cruisers it could make for a nice new way of playing. Right, the skills I would recommend for her. Well, Beyond Range, Ghost, Fortified, Fixated, and well, your choice for the legendary skills, as both are equally good thanks to the German ship's utility and reload speed in general. For inspirations, I would definitely look at going Swirsky and Mikawa, although if you don't have Swirsky, you can try out Mikau and Lemonade for a change of pace. Very quickly here, you have until December 21st to get your hands on these ladies. Each commander can be purchased directly from the special tab at the store for 5,000 doubloons, or you can pick up the 5 Azur Lane crates for 2,500 doubloons each and get them all for essentially half price. If you want the camouflages for Graf, Spee and Scharnhorst, they are available for 5,000 doubloons each, with the Azur Lane, Queen Elizabeth and Fusou being available to buy for 10,000 doubloons and Baltimore for 15,000. And yes, that is the same price as some of the early Tier 6 premiums. Want to buy the whole lot? Well, that'll set you back 46,850 doubloons. Can't afford the Azur Lane Commander crates? Well then fear not, there will be a mission in the near future where you'll be able to earn yourself a free crate, so you'll be able to get at least one of those beautiful ladies. Let's quickly touch on the elephant in the room here, which I haven't previously mentioned. Repackaging of the tech tree ships as premiums, as well as directly selling a tier 7 ship. My thoughts on this? Well, if you like the particular ships, then I don't have an issue with them. I think Wargaming misinterpreted the feedback of players wanting to make more credits and XP from their tech tree ships. Economic perks for premium camouflages, anyone? But I digress. The camouflages themselves look much better than the last batch of Azur Lane ones, so that's definitely a bonus. As for buying a tier 7 ship directly, well, that's kind of been the thing since the second campaign for Turpits. You could pay to skip the whole campaign, albeit at an inflated cost because of all the other bump, but still, a T7 ship was yours if you could afford to splash out. And so, let's think about bringing this one to a close, shall we? I think I've rambled on for long enough. Again, sorry for the lack of recent content and the slowness of any upcoming future content. Life is being a bit shitty, if I'm honest. But, If you have liked the video, please do consider hitting that thumbs up button as well as the subscribe button to get notified when I upload in the future. It helps the channel out not only in terms of followers, but also in terms of YouTube algorithms, allowing the channel to be more easily recommended on other people's playlists and searched for on the site itself. Don't forget to check out the description below for links to my other profiles, such as my Facebook page, my Twitch feed, and of course the Discord server as well. All that's left for me to say now is thanks for watching, take care, and bye for now.